changing how we see others who are different. In the past, we were taught to see others who are different as somehow being deficient.
Get right here.
Christians saw Jews as being deficient. Catholics saw Protestants as being deficient. Presbyterians saw Pentecostals as being deficient. Folk who like to holler and worship saw folk who like to be quiet as deficient, and vice versa. White saw black as being deficient. It was none other than Rudyard Kipling who saw the white man's burden as a mandate to lift brown, black, yellow people up to the level of white people, as if whites were the norm and black, brown, and yellow people were abnormal subspecies on a lower level or deficient. Europeans saw Africans as deficient. Lovers of George Frederick Kendall and Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart saw lovers of B.B. King and Frankie Beverly and Mays as deficient. Lovers of Marian Anderson saw lovers of Lady Day and Anita Baker as deficient. Lovers of European cantatas, come for thee, and the glory of the Lord. Lovers of European cantatas saw lovers of common meter. I love the Lord, He heard my cry. They saw them as deficient. In the past, we were taught to see others who are different as being deficient. We established arbitrary norms and then determined that anybody not like us was abnormal. But a change is coming, because we no longer see others who are different as being deficient. We just see them as different. Over the past 50 years, thanks to the scholarship of dozens of experts in many different disciplines, we have come to see just how skewed, prejudiced, and dangerous our miseducation has been. Miseducation, incidentally, is not a Jeremiah Wright term. It is a word coined by Dr. Carter G. Woodson over 80 years ago. Sounds like he talked hate speech, doesn't it? Now analyze that. Two brilliant scholars and two beautiful sisters, both of whom hail from Detroit in the fields of education and linguistics. Dr. Janice Hale, right here at Wayne State University, founder of the Institute for the Study of the African American Child, and Dr. Geneva Smitherman, formerly of Wayne State University, now at Michigan State University in Lansing. Hale in education and Smitherman in linguistics. Both demonstrated 40 years ago that different does not mean deficient. Somebody's going to miss that. Turn to your neighbor and say, different does not mean deficient. It simply means different. In fact, Dr. Janice Hale was the first writer whom I read who used that phrase. Different does not mean deficient. Different is not synonymous with deficient. It was in Dr. Hale's first book, Black Children, Their Roots, Culture, and Learning Styles. As Dr. Hale here tonight, we owe her a debt of gratitude. Dr. Hale showed us that in comparing African American children and European American children in the field of education, we were comparing apples and rocks. And in so doing, we kept coming up with meaningless labels like EMH, educable
you said it.
handicap, TMH, trainable mentally handicapped, ADD, attention deficit disorder. And we were coming up with even more meaningless solutions like reading, writing, and riddling. Dr. Hale's research led her to stop comparing African American children with European American children, and she started comparing the pedagogical methodologies of African American children to African children and European American children to European children. And bingo! She discovered that the two different worlds have two different ways of learning. European and European American children have a left brain cognitive object-oriented learning style. And the entire educational system in the United States of America back in the early 70s when Dr. Hale did her research was based on left brain cognitive object-oriented learning style. Let me help you with them 50-cent words. Left brain is logical and analytical. Object-oriented means the student learns from an object, from the solitude of the cradle with objects being hung over his or her head to help them determine colors and shape, to the solitude in a carrel in a PhD program, stuck off somewhere in a corner in absolute quietness to absorb from the object, from a block to a book. An object. That is one way of learning, but it is only one way of learning. African and African American children have a different way of learning. They are right brain, subject oriented in their learning styles. Right brain, that means creative and intuitive. Subject oriented means they learn not from an object, but from a subject. They learn from a person. Some of you all are old enough, I see your hair color, to remember when the Naacp won that tremendous desegregation case back in 1954. And when the schools were desegregated, they were never integrated. When they were desegregated in Philadelphia, several of the white teachers in my school freaked out. Why? Because black kids wouldn't stay in their place over there behind the desk. Black kids climbed up all on them. Because they learned from a subject, not from an object. Tell me a story. They have a different way of learning. Those same children who have difficulty reading from an object and who are labeled EMH, GMH, and ADD, those children can say every word from every song on every hip-hop radio station, half of whose words the average adult here tonight cannot understand. Why? Because they come from a right brain, creative, oral culture like the griots in Africa who can go for 2 to 3 days as oral repositories of a people's history. And like the oral tradition which passed down the first 5 books in our Jewish Bible, our Christian Bible, our Hebrew Bible, long before there was a written Hebrew script or alphabet who could memorize and repeat incredulously long passages like Psalm 119 using mnemonic devices in 8-line stanzas, each stanza starting with a different letter of the alphabet. That is a different way of learning. It is not deficient, it is just different. Somebody say different. Different. I believe that a change is going to come because many of us are committed to changing how we see other people who are different. What Dr. Janice Hale did in the field of education, Dr. Geneva Smitherman did in the field of linguistics. Almost 25 years ago now, Dr. Smitherman's book, published by Wayne State University, Talking and Testifying, the Language of Black America, taught us the same thing. Different does not mean deficient. Linguists had known since the mid-20th century that, number one, nobody in Detroit, with the exception of citizens born and raised in the United Kingdom,